Max Jackson released the wonderful album Life of the Party in 2020, and she has just released an EP out here. Last year, she won the prestigious Toyota Star Maker competition. I have questions about all of those things. Hello, Max.
Hello, Sophie. Oh, thank you so much for having me. We were just saying, I feel like I already know you, but we haven't chatted before. So this is so fun.
And it's very fun for me because Life of the Party is an album I play all the time, but I will get to that. I'm going to start off by saying congratulations belatedly for being named Star Maker last year. I was at the Star Maker Grand Final and I had a feeling you were going to win during the day, actually. Someone had said to me, who do you think will win? I said, Max Jackson's going to win.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you did win. And initially that was to be announced in January, of course, but the festival
Mhm.
was delayed till April last year. What was it like for you waiting all those months to find out what was going to happen?
Oh my gosh, I am officially the most impatient person in the world. So you can imagine when they announced that the festival was postponed, I was just like, what am I going to do now? All this time to wait. But I really did sort of utilize that time, I guess, just to prepare more. And being in the Toyota Star Maker competition is a big deal. You've got to get up
Mm.
on the biggest stage in Tamworth and play. So I actually, in hindsight, am grateful for those extra few months to be ready for it for sure. But I've had the most incredible year as Toyota Star Maker for 2022, and I'm sure we'll talk about more of that stuff too.
Yes. Well, and just on the night itself, I thought, wow, this is full on. Like I'd never been to the Star Maker Grand Final before, and the band's there. You've all got to perform one song. So there are 10 contestants or 10 grand finalists. You perform one song, then you go off and you come back and perform another song, and it's
Yes.
all quite frantic. And the cameras going on and everything. To manage your adrenaline on a night like that when it's not your show,
Uh-huh.
as a band that's not yours, that must be quite tricky as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was full on. And I mean, obviously you saw what happened at the grand final, but in the day in the lead up to the actual grand final night, it was really full on as well. We do an interview with the judges throughout the day, and so they sort of like ask a lot of questions about what you will do if you win, and sort of some tricky questions too, just to see how people handle that sort of interview there as well, which was full on. And then we went over and we had our sound check and our rehearsal with the band, which actually just got me so excited because it sounded amazing. And I mean, they're just stellar musicians that you get to play with, which is such a awesome experience. But yeah, the night is very, very full on, and there's a lot of cameras. It's being live streamed, so you've got all of those things sort of on top of the fact that you're in a competition. You want to do your best, and ultimately you want to win.
Yeah, and it's for people who don't know much about it. It's not a talent search competition. It's a competition for artists at a certain level of their career. So you had the album out by the time you entered it. You've been playing music live for quite a while, even though you're a young woman. So what prompted you to enter at that particular stage of your career?
Yeah, look, I've watched the competition for pretty much as long as I can remember. I've been going to Tamworth since I was a little girl, and I'd watched a lot of other winners, take their titles, and it was always something that was in the back of my mind that I wanted to do. But it wasn't actually until sort of after we were in the lockdowns and I'd released my album, like you mentioned, and then there was so much time where we couldn't play, we couldn't get out and do all the things that we usually love to do, and it sort of just made me think a lot about, well, when we are able to get back out, what am I going to do? And
Right.
it's sort of a bit of a woo woo thing, but I do a lot of meditation, and I'm someone who has experienced a lot of anxiety and things like that throughout my life. So I do meditation a lot, and I was doing this guided meditation on, it was something called like, what are your next steps? Something like that. And I remember I was doing it, and I just literally had the idea to enter Star Maker as I was doing it. And when I sort of opened my eyes, I jumped on the website to check if the entries were still open, and they were supposed to have closed that day, but they'd extended it for a week, which
Oh,
was
wow. Okay.
just felt really like, okay, well, you definitely meant to enter this. That felt like a sign for me. And so I went ahead and I entered, and yeah, and then I made the top 10 and then ultimately won, which was such a cool thing.
As a sidebar, because I was going to ask you about songwriting later, but because you mentioned meditation, I'm interested whether you use meditation in your songwriting or just general creative practice. Like, do you trust ideas that come to you when you're meditating?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've always been, when it comes to songwriting, I always believe that there's like this idea-verse where all the ideas are floating around, and that like we're lucky enough, obviously, to grab onto them every now and then, and sort of the ideas choose us. And obviously a lot of song ideas come from personal experience, but sometimes you just get this idea and you think, where did that come from? Like, it's got to be you're tapping into something, is sort of what I think. And I guess so. I always think if I get an idea, I have to do something with it. So I have to, if I don't have time to write it that day, I have to write it down at least, and, you know, write everything that I'm thinking at that moment. Or, yeah, if I'm stuck, I do go to meditation a lot, or, you know, just sort of like, uh, trying to think of the bigger picture, and getting the ideas that way. So I guess it is a tool that I use in that way as well.
And do you find that live performance is also like meditation, in that you're completely present in it, or are you a live performer who's actually got your brain sort of doing other things while you're playing?
Yeah, no, I totally immerse myself in whatever I'm doing. I've always been one of those people that, like, if I'm, you know, if I'm working on something on my laptop and somebody else is talking to me, I'm like, sorry, what did you say? And then I'll be like listening, and then I'll be, can you just say it again? Because I absolutely do immerse myself in things completely. So yeah, there's been a couple of experiences on stage where I feel like, you know, sometimes I can't even remember actually, like, I can remember what it felt like to be on stage, but I don't remember the particulars about like what I said or what, you know, what I did. And sort of just immerse yourself in it so much that you get a bit lost, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is, because it means you're completely in flow with what you're doing.
Yeah.
In those moments. But to go back to Star Maker, because once you won it, I was looking at your Instagram, you just had all these things suddenly happening. Like, you were here, you were there, you were doing this, you were doing that. So you went to Nashville, you did some other things. So what have you been up to in the past few months?
Oh my gosh, it's been an amazing, well, it's really 9 months or so since I won. And the day after I won, actually, the craziest thing was I went to pick up my new car, which is a part of the prize. So I woke up the next morning, and I think the Star Maker Grand Final finished pretty close to, I guess, 10 o'clock or so at night. And then there was a lot of media backstage and people hanging around to celebrate after. And then my first media call was like 6:30 the next morning.
Wow.
And I had media calls all morning. And then at about 9:30, I went to pick up the car, which was crazy. We headed over to Toyota, picked up the car, which was brand new. I didn't realize it was going to be like brand new.
Right.
And it's just the nicest car that I've ever been able to drive around, and a fuel card, which was crazy. Then sort of the year just was so paced. It was getting to Nashville in June, playing at CMA Fest, playing at the Bluebird Cafe, writing songs. So I wrote 4 songs. I was only there for 8 days, so I did all of this in eight
Wow.
days. I wrote 4 songs, played at CMA, played at the Bluebird. Um, 2 of those songs made it onto my EP as well. Then I basically came home and played a bunch of festivals, which was really cool. Played Gimpy Muster and Groundwater Country Music Festival, and a few others as well in between. And we also sort of did an acoustic tour at the same time. So making the most of obviously having the car and the fuel card that we could get out and play, particularly in some more regional areas. So we did a bunch of shows that were in some smaller towns and communities, which was really fun, an acoustic tour. And basically, yeah, working on my EP at the same time, being in the studio on the Central Coast with Rod McCormack, my producer. And so, yeah, it's just been really fast paced and really, really good. I mentioned I'm someone who suffers, you know, with anxiety, and I don't think I've felt anxious at once this year because I haven't had enough time.
To stop and worry. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. But you are in the unusual position of being like a crossover star maker because of the time of year it was announced. And I did see you during the festival that's just happened saying that you don't have to hand the card back until April. So I'm guessing they're giving you your full 12 months, and you and Lauren are just, Lauren Ryan, who was the new star maker winner, are just overlapping a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited for Lauren, the brand new Toyota Star Maker. It's now her year completely, but otherwise, Toyota have been so kind, and Tamworth Regional Council and everyone involved to, yeah, allow me to have the car for a bit longer, which is cool because we have a bunch of things coming up. We've got CMC Rocks Queensland too in March, so it means that we can take the car and fly the Toyota Star Maker flag there too.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have packed pretty much a year's worth of activity into the 9 months since you won it. So, and I mentioned the festival, Tamworth Country Music Festival, that's just happened. How was your 2023 Tamworth?
Oh my gosh. Well, I thought last year, I thought April was busy, but
Mm.
oh, I think I tripled it this year. It was a very busy, really great things happened. So I actually had my first ticketed show and it sold out, which was
Congratulations.
so, thank you. It was so exciting. And I was launching the EP at that show, which was really cool. So it was the first time having the EP there for sale, playing it completely through. First time I've ever played all the songs on stage. So that was a really special moment and just a real full circle, beautiful thing to do. And then I had two shows in the park, which was the official opening concert and also the Star Maker Grand Final. So I performed while they were deciding upon the new winner, which was so exciting. I actually, obviously, great choice, but I wish they took a little longer because I wanted to do a couple of extra songs because it was
Yeah,
so
fair
much
enough.
fun. And yeah, I basically got around and did a bunch of other events, things to do with Toyota and things like that over the festival. Oh, and something else really cool. Actually, I was on the other side of the interview because I was doing a interview series called Star Chats, which was in partnership with TCMF, and I was interviewing artists every day live on the TCMF Facebook page. So really loved doing that as well. It was just so much fun sort of researching into the artists and trying to ask them questions, that we don't get asked all the time, which is cool.
Yeah, I saw a clip of that, and you were sitting right in the middle of Peel Street, I think.
Yes, it was
For it, yeah.
live. It was live in the street, and we were at a different location every day. And the exciting thing was that the artist got announced the afternoon before. So we would have fans come down and join in, and we had tickets to give away and things like that. So, yeah, it definitely kept me busy amidst the other performances as well.
So the EP out here has 4 songs on it, and it is a different piece of work to your album. So I don't know if that's because you worked with some different songwriters or you just have a different intention for it. So you mentioned that 2 of the songs were written while you're in Nashville, and were the other 2 songs that you had already written pre-Star Maker, or are they all new since then?
Yeah, so pretty much just speaking to the fact that it is very different too. So my album Life of the Party was sort of much more of a songwriter focus. So I'd been a behind the scenes songwriter as well for other artists for a long time before. And so I just love writing songs. And I'd written, I think in one year, I wrote like 160 songs one year. And so I'm obsessed with writing songs. And so then I guess that album was the 13 best songs that I chose out of sort of like the 8 or 10 years before that of
Wow.
writing, because it was my first collection of songs. So that was definitely much more of a songwriter focus, whereas the new EP is really focused on the music that we can play at the big festivals that we've been playing. And it is much more high energy, which is really exciting to play live. So Runnin' I actually wrote when I found out that I was a grand finalist.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was just the day that I actually heard and they said, you're going to be in the grand final. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need a song that is really up and has a lot of energy to be up on that big stage in Tamworth. So I wrote that day, and then I took it to Rod McCormack, who I finished it off with before that. So that was cool. And then Stratosphere is a song that I wrote in Nashville. You Deserve Better, I wrote in Nashville as well. And also Someone in a Small Town was a song that I actually wrote with Nolan Wynn, who has been recently writing a lot of songs with James Johnston too. And we sort of met each other just through mutual friends. And we didn't really know each other the first time we jumped on Zoom, which was to write this song. And I had that idea. And we just hit it off. And it was probably one of the quickest and easiest songs that I've ever written with anyone. And that was just focused for the EP. I think we only ended up writing it probably in October or so.
Right.
So they're all new songs that had been written, only sort of in the last year.
And Someone in a Small Town, I guess, is a little bit autobiographical because you're from a small town. You're from
Yeah.
Canamble in New South Wales. So what was great about growing up in a small town, and what was not
Oh
so
my
great?
gosh. Well, you know what? I haven't lived in Canberra for a really long time. I moved when I was about 12 years old, but I have the best memories of growing up in a country town. And I think Canberra's very small. It's a very tight-knit community. And the song that I wrote is about sort of what my favorite thing about Canberra is. And that's, that every single person plays a really important role.
Mhm.
So my mum's a hairdresser and she had a big salon when we lived in Canamble, and she sort of like doubled as, people's counselor. And then my dad was the life of the party when he would walk into, the local pub, or my nan makes a mean sponge cake. Like no matter who you are in a country town, you are important for whatever reason, you know what I mean? And it all sort of that I guess how you rely on your neighbor and
Mhm.
you really are involved in that community. That's something I really wanted to write about. And so that's essentially what the song is about, is that everyone is someone in a small town. And it's sort of actually, I when I had the idea, it wasn't called Someone in a Small Town. I think it was called Somebody in a Small Town. And then I took the idea in, and we sort of came up with the whole thing that the verses go, someone in a small town is dying to get out. He was born and raised. And sort of it does that. And then it flips the meaning of someone in a small town in the chorus, which I really love. But yeah, I think it's the start of a long writing friendship with Nolan,
Ah.
which is really fun.
Yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned Rod McCormack as your producer, and you've had a long association with Rod and with Gina Jeffries, his wife.
Yes.
And I believe that you were mentored by Gina, or you have been for a while. So how did you come to meet her?
Yeah, so back in 2009, I think it was 2009, I entered a competition called Brand New Star, which was a radio competition on the Central Coast. So I joke now and say I only do things with star in the name.
Fair
But
enough
I
too.
and you know what's funny is I actually haven't entered many competitions in my life. I've always been a part of like country music clubs and things like that growing up, where I used to go and perform, but not so much competitions. So that competition I entered, and the prize, there was a cash prize, but there was also a full day of mentoring with Gina, and
Right.
also a recording with Rod. So
Mm.
I look back on that and I just think I can't believe, that kicked off the longest, friendship and collaborative team that I've had in music. And I remember because I was a really, really big fan of Gina Jeffries growing up. She would come out to Canamble and play, and my mum and dad would take me to all of the big country singers shows, and I would look up and think, I just want to be like them one day. And Gina was absolutely one of those for me. So it was a really exciting moment to meet Gina, and we just really hit it off. Like, we absolutely felt like we'd known each other before that first meeting, and that turned into more mentoring, throughout the next couple of years. And then I ended up teaching at her performance school that she has as well, and then joined her band and toured with her, opening her show all around Australia on the Beautiful Tangle tour. And then yeah, just continued to mentor me this whole time. She actually just called me a couple of hours ago just for a Tamworth debrief. So she's just someone who absolutely inspires me so much, and yeah, has helped me like beyond words over the 14 years that we've known each other.
And I think that is a lovely part of Australian country music, that is that mentoring relationship that can happen. No doubt you in turn will do it for someone if you're not already doing it. So I know that it's
Absolutely.
passed on in that way.
Yes.
But, on Life at the Party, which Rod produced, there is the song Song Girl. And you did talk earlier about how many songs you had written in a year and how many songs you had to choose from. When did songwriting start for you?
Songwriting really started. So when we moved, when I was about 12, we moved from Canamble to the Hunter Valley. And basically, for me, that felt like the big city. It felt like I was just so out of my comfort zone. And I remember going to my school, and even on the first day, they accidentally took me into like 2 years above where I was supposed to be. And I thought everyone was like so tall, and I was so small. And I thought, oh my gosh, these can't be the people I'm going to be in class with. And I just felt so out of place. And I guess growing up and being a really massive country music fan, I really wanted to be a country singer and all of that. And that was just so different, for like anyone at that school. So basically, I actually got a bit picked on about it, and I ended up getting my first guitar around that time. And I just remember sitting down and writing my first song. I don't even know why I did it. I hadn't had any lessons on how to do it or anything like that, but I guess I just loved music for such a long time and was able to sing a lot of other people's songs on the guitar and stuff. And I just picked a bunch of chords and started writing what I was feeling. And I laugh now looking back, but the song that I wrote was called No One Sees Me.
Oh.
And it was really about that whole, like, no one understands me. I'm so
Mm.
different to everybody here. And so I guess for as long as I've been writing songs since I was about 12, it's always just really been like what I'm feeling, and getting that out onto the paper. And I think that's something that's really cool about songwriting, is it's an incredible way to process emotion as well.
Mm-hmm. And so you talking about singing other people's songs and playing on guitar, and you have such a lovely singing voice. Is it something that you had lessons for? You've just developed it over the years?
Oh, well, thank you. So basically, when I was little, I was a really loud, sort of crazy, energetic, slightly naughty child. And my mum, basically, I was too young to go to school, and she thought we've got to do something with it because she's just got so much energy to burn, and we need to get something going. And there wasn't sort of a lot of different activities. I wasn't very into sports. I played one netball game, and nobody threw me the ball. And then when they did, I dropped it, so I walked off, and I never went back on. Wasn't really into sports, other than actually I was a really competitive swimmer when I was a little bit older. But my mum, so then didn't like the sport, didn't like the little athletics, all those things. So she put me into elocution lessons because that was one of the only things that she could find. So I was reciting poems, and I only would ever do it. There was this fairy book, a fairy poem book that I would read it from when I was about 3, and I have footage of myself reading it on stage, or reciting it. I guess obviously I wasn't reading it, but then in one of my lessons, actually, apparently, they tell me that I sang the poem. I just sang it out. And so my teacher, shout out to Jessie Tim, who still is in Canamble, she basically said to my mum, I think that she's a really nice singer. And so she was also a singing teacher. And so it turned into lessons from there. And then over the years, actually, when I first moved to to the Hunter Valley, sorry, one of my first singing teachers here was Lynn Botel as
Oh,
well.
right.
So I met Lynn Botel through another thing, and Lynn is my most favorite singer in the world. And so I learned from her for a long time, and sort of, yeah, I had a lot of different teachers throughout the years, but I definitely liked the teachers who were in the country space and sort of really understood that it's not so much technical singing compared to other styles of music.
Well, except that I find that in Australian country music, at least, part of the great thing as a listener is knowing that the singers do enunciate really clearly. I mean, your elocution
True.
lessons stood you in good stead. So it's not like super technical singing, I guess, but it is clear communication. That's a big part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've always, listening to Life at the Party, I often think when I'm listening to it, that part of the element of it is almost like a mission statement, in that music is what you're meant to be doing. That's a message that's really clear on that album. So what age did you realize that?
For as long as I can remember. Like, I don't remember ever thinking about doing anything else. And it's sort of crazy because I didn't grow up in a musical family at all. Like I mentioned, my mom's a hairdresser. My dad has always worked in management roles in like the concrete industry. So they sort of didn't really, well, as soon as I was saying I want to sing and I want to do these things, they had really no idea what to do. And that's why we were always seeking out, help from teachers and mentors, and going to country music clubs where I could be around other people who liked that sort of thing. But I just remember from a really young age, like, this is all I have ever wanted to do. And I worked a couple of just odd jobs when I left school so that I could save money to, record the next song or buy the next instrument. And I guess every single time I ever went to any other job, it was just so that I could fund this. And I now through the week, I actually do mentor a bunch of other students. So passing on now what I've learned I have about 30 students that I teach every week, which I absolutely love. And some of them are guitar, singing, songwriting, and basically whatever I call it, I'm their confidence coach.
Right. How lovely. I think it's, because that is part of it. It's not necessarily a talent that people would say is a talent like music, but confidence is definitely a talent, I think, that can be fostered.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But speaking of confidence, the title of the album is a little ironic in that you make it clear in the title song that you're not necessarily the life of the party.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So Life of the Party is about my personal experience with anxiety, and particularly social anxiety. I just remember, like, for as long as I can remember, I would be going to something that I really wanted to go to, but I had this overwhelming feeling of, but I just hate the moment when I have to walk through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just can remember that so vividly. And I used to be on the way to something, and then I would say to my mum, I don't want to go anymore. I just don't want to go. It's too much. And I guess it's because I've always been someone who's put a lot of pressure on myself as well to do really well in everything that I do. So I would say that. And then she would say, that's all right, we'll turn around, we'll go home. And then I'd be like, no, I don't want to turn around and go home. I want to go. And it was just such a confusing feeling.
Mhm.
And so I really wanted to write a song about that. I think there's a lot of songs out there about mental health, but I guess I just hadn't heard one that sort of spoke more to that exact feeling that I had and what I experienced when it came to anxiety, because everyone experiences such different things. So when I went over to Nashville, this was in about 2018, I was in a room with an incredible songwriter, Jay Knowles. And I always say only two anxious humans could write this song, and the reason it worked so well is because he totally got it. He was
Yeah.
just like, oh, I know exactly the feeling. He's like, I don't want to dress up, because if I dress up and then I show up and no one else is dressed up, like when I walk in, everyone's going to know that I'm there. Like
Yeah.
it was just straight out of that sort of internal chatter that I have and that he had.
And I guess it's the push and pull as well of being someone who wants to perform, has the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And yes, wanting to be out there, but also thinking, I don't really want to be out there. And that's not easily reconciled. But as you said, you've been practicing meditation, and obviously you've got yourself to a place where you can manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. I always think about it as like I have two sort of personalities, my off stage and my on stage. And my
Mhm.
on stage is like the superhero version of my off stage. That's the easiest way. I just like get up there and I'm the superhero version of me today. And I can
Yes.
absolutely, and when you've been on stage for a really long time as well, you know how much joy it brings, not only to me but to
Mm.
other people. And I think that's something that keeps me getting up on stage every single time, is how much fun I have. And at the end of every single, or actually 2 seconds into every single performance, I think this is the most fun in the entire world, and I want to do that again.
Yeah. Well, I do listen to your album when I want to smile, or like even if I just want to dance around the living room.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what music you listen to when you want to do those things.
Oh my gosh, I listen to so much music. Some of my favorites, one of my absolute favorite albums is Casey Musgraves,
Mm.
Golden Hour, and it's one of my most favorite albums of all time that I would just put on and listen to and love. Some more recent things that I've really loved is Miranda Lambert's new album. I think she's such a strong female, and she always plays that really strong character in her songs,
Mhm.
which I absolutely love. And it's so stylized too. That's something that I really love, is sort of like having that constant flow and style, I guess, throughout the music. They're two particular favorites. I also love just listening to great songwriters. So, like, even just today, I was listening to Hardy's new album, because
Mhm.
he's one of the most innovative and creative writers that, I've heard in a really long time. So, particular, always country. But yeah, sort of depends on the mood too. You know, when you're like, I don't know what mood I'm in today, I'm going to scroll through and see what I feel like listening to.
Yeah. Well, I've had you talking for quite a while, and I should let you get to the rest of your evening. But just looking ahead for the rest of the year, you mentioned some shows. You're heading to CMC in Queensland. Have you planned out the whole year yet, or are you leaving some time to write new songs?
Yeah, I absolutely am going to go for a writing season a little bit this year. I'm going over to Nashville, but playing is absolutely at the forefront of everything that we're planning. And I've got a lot of shows in the works. It's not really something I can say yet, but I've got a bunch of things planned, and I just can't wait, especially, being on the back of the show in Tamworth and how much fun we had, now that I've got my band together, and it's a whole vibe, and it's everything, happening that I've always dreamt of having. So we've definitely got a few festivals in the works, and then side shows as well. So obviously people can follow my socials and check out for when we announce that. But yeah, plan is to get out to as many places, and particularly regional areas too, as we can.
Well, I can thoroughly recommend that people do that, Max, because no doubt your music will make them as happy as it makes me. So, but I will
Thank
leave
you,
it there.
Sophie.
And the EP is out here. The album is Life of the Party. Max Jackson, such a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Sophie. This has been really fun.